Morning, everyone. Thank you, Felicia. Can you hear me well? Very, very welcome. Good morning to everyone. Welcome, good welcome. Thank you, panelists, for taking your time to open up this first panel, which is really important because we want to set the tone. I think, as Felicia said, it's going to be really engaging. It's interactive. They're here to share their personal experiences. So please, at this time, just go onto your Slido. You could ask any questions to any of the panelists, and I will be picking the most highly voted questions from the audience. So please could take a minute, and with that, I'm going to start and talk about, to kickstart and set the tone for today's event. So, Felicia talked about success post-digitalization. I'm sure the last 2 years, you spent a lot of time in your organization looking at technology investments, and there's so much talk about adopting, whether cloud, AI, data to help. We've heard the words about business transformation, but I think recent years we've heard a lot about business resilience as well, how technology has helped that. And I'm sure it's been a very busy 2 years with pandemic and all the geopolitical situations that we have. So I'd like to hear your thoughts, right? What does business resilience mean to you, your organization? How has technology helped? What has worked? And what has not worked? I think the not worked is probably what all of us would like to hear your thoughts on. And with that, maybe Kshitij.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Specifically in terms of business resilience, the way I look at it is on three vectors. First is protecting the people, protecting the assets, and then protecting the revenue. And the businesses have adopted over the last couple of years on all these three metrics. Surely we've gotten used to working, staying connected remotely. Hybrid is now normal, not even a new thing. In terms of specifically assets and revenue, new forms of revenue streams have arrived. There is widespread adoption of e-commerce, online. So shopping has moved online. There's mass movement of people online. So that's also almost normal. I think what we could still do more and learn from, I wouldn't say it's not work, but it's a learning journey nevertheless, is staying connected and developing an organization culture that is robust and strong through the post-pandemic area, right? Because that's where the people connection and the face-to-face interactions count the most. So I would say culture is one piece where there's still room to grow and improve, yeah.
So you talk about, online shopping, maybe Karen, over to you, right? Being from DHL, and we had a lot of discussion on that.
So I think for us in DHL, we are primarily transporting, right? Even during the pandemic, we were still working. We were essential services. So what was important for us, what worked, was that we actually stayed close to the ground. We needed to ensure that we are meeting what our customers need. Being very sensitive, especially during a pandemic where they wanted to reduce physical contact with our couriers. So we basically listened. We did leave at the door, okay, signature release. We actually have chat analytics. We use digital bots, etc., and we use all this information. And I think information was, key, and that worked. Gathering all the information, what were customers asking for. There was times when they needed to send oxygen tanks to India, right? And we found that we needed to get all these kind of information ready on hand to help the customer. So staying close to the ground, getting all this information through analytics, and then churning out to help our customer service people, our couriers, to do their job safely. I think during this pandemic, what's really, really critical is keeping our people safe, because they had to work every day. While the back office staff could work from home, our couriers, our operations people had to be in the office 24/7. We were keeping the lights running because we had to fly our planes out with the pickup, we have to deliver. So that worked. What did not work, I guess, it's always an experiment, right? Where we needed to figure out, okay, if it didn't work, we try fast, fail fast, we do something else. With the ultimate goal, as what was mentioned, is keeping our people safe, keeping our assets safe.
Balaji?
Hey, thanks, Lai. So when I look at resilience, right, for an organization, resilience is at multiple levels. As Kshitij and Karen was saying, it's about people, but we have to start early. Many of our organizations, like enterprises where I belong to, GE Healthcare, we've been formed over a period of time, organically and inorganically. So we had to start looking at how do I bring in a framework or the digital strategy which is going to be resilient enough for these kind of changes? So pandemic was not easy for us, and when we started looking at our architecture, we knew exactly what are the top 10 or top 20 applications which are going to be critical for us from a business continuity standpoint. And that helped us tide through that pandemic phase, one. Second, once we were able to get that standardization, data was very key. As Karen was talking about, we were able to respond with analytics, apply governance and controls when commodity prices was fluctuating or the logistics were becoming challenges. So we are able to prioritize where we are able to allocate resources. So that was not possible if your architecture is not standardized. Right? And third is growth. So resilience is not about, something is happening and I'm going to prevent it kind of a thing, right? It's also preparing yourself for the future. So in that phase, what we are seeing is during the pandemic, we were able to see the responses from the customers. They are getting more digitally savvy. They want more digital engagement. So being an industrial company where we are building big missions, now we are starting to think about omni-channel engagement, where we are able to engage with customers on the channel of their choice rather than forcing us to do a face-to-face meeting, which was not practical during the pandemic as well. So for me, these are the three phases which I could see resilience from my organization aspect.
I think great points. I think the pandemic has definitely shown a lot of points of failures. People are starting to look at that. You talk about governance and controls. Maybe Raju, what's your take on that, right? Coming from a standards committee.
So I'm going to answer from your point of view. Basically, business resilience is the ability of the organization to bounce back from a mishap. And from your point of view, there are two standards that you should worry about. Reason being that 100% of us have business happening on the cloud. And there are only two issues in the cloud that you have to worry about. One is security, the other is availability. They are two sides of the same coin. So for security, we have a standard called MTCS, Multi-Tier Cloud Security, which has three categorizations of levels that you can apply for, and this is valid for CSPs or those who are offering cloud-based services to consumers or to businesses. And please go and look up online. You can download a document called MTCS, Multi-Tier Cloud Security. And for availability, there is a guideline called COIR, Cloud Outage Incidents Response. This is for CSPs as well as CSCs, which is Cloud Service Consumers, which is all of us. So once you have these two compliances already in place, you have mitigated 90% of the risks and are resilient, are compliant, and are ready to weather whatever storm comes and hits you, whether it's through security or through lack of availability. Thanks.
Thank you. So moving on, Gartner predicts that, in 2023, if you do digitization, transformation, and do it in a more composable strategy way, right? And we've heard people talking about creating agile squads, doing it in a more agile way. I think Felicia mentioned that. But the reality is, we're also managing a lot of legacy systems, right, in your organizations. What are your thoughts on how to balance that agility as well as the legacy systems that you're all facing, right? Plus all the compliance and governance that we're also seeing that is very important, right? Maybe Karen, yeah.
Yeah, I think similar to GE, right? DHL has been around for 50 years. This year is our 50th year in Singapore, and we have legacy. So we are now in this, we've been in this journey since 2015, moving from legacy to the new agile way of working. And what we've done is trying to modularize. That means we take a legacy system, we then break it up into little modules, and then we start building it using containers, API calls, etc., while trying to keep the lights running. So in essence, basically, sometimes we end up running both at the same time, okay, while building resilience. So we need to, as very clearly, standards, right? Security, IT standards, ISMS, data protection, all these must be in place while we're building it. So I would be lying to tell you that it is an easy journey, because whatever we do in DHL, we do it in 220 countries at the same time. So we're not doing it single country, it is done globally to region, to country, and as we build the APIs, it becomes reusable. That helps, but believe me, the journey, the pain is actually really, really challenging, and it takes a really strong leader, okay, and guidance from the top to reinforce that you have to carry on this journey. So it is, we are still in this journey. We haven't modernized everything. Okay, our strategy, our global strategy is we'll put 80% of all our systems on the cloud, which is where the security standards and compliance is. That's the journey. We are maybe about 20–30%, so we still have a long way to go, but to reach there in 2025, 80% to the cloud. So yeah, it is not an enviable task that we do, but we do it across 220 countries. It's not a single country migration that we're looking at.
It's definitely not an easy journey. Maybe Raju on that, right? Given the scale and yet the agility, thoughts on that, still needing to comply to governance, standards and all.
So you've got to see standards as helping you. The reason is, look at malware attacks, look at scams. For those who don't know, all of last year, Singaporeans, Singapore businesses, Singapore government, Singapore consumers lost a whopping $633 million to scams. This year, H1, January to June alone, the amount is $346 million. That's not a small amount for a small country like us. In fact, we are, on a per capita basis, we will be the highest scammed country in the world. Now, why should that bother you? Because much of this happens because many of us are not cognizant of standards, protocols, BCDR issues. So it doesn't matter whether you're 100% on the cloud, or you are hybrid, or you have multi-cloud. If your business is not available, if a customer cannot get across to you, if you're not PDPC compliant, you're going to lose money. And worse than money, you're going to lose reputation. So please take standards, compliance, protocols seriously.
I like that mindset shift, right? To think of compliance and controls as helping us. Perhaps, as what Karen was mentioning, it's about that leadership, having that North Star, what is it that you're going for? And let's not put that on the back burner. So I think that's important. Maybe Balaji, how about you? On balancing agility and,
Yeah, so in a way I feel I'm a little bit fortunate when I heard from Karen because our architecture is like around 70% on cloud at this point globally. And it's not an easy journey as well for us. 5 years back, we had around 400 ERPs. So each region, each country had an ERP version. Now we have one ERP across the globe. We have one CRM. So what it helps us is that you are now thinking about the process. How do I break it into silos or a more modular one and start looking at highly utilized process? So I can put efforts on scaling those areas rather than trying to generalize my resources across the entire stack. So that is helping us in terms of creating headless commerce or working through the omni-channel journeys along, right? So that's where I see the growth happening. So we see a lot of opportunities in this space.
Thanks. I think I would paraphrase by saying that it's an evolution versus a revolution. We are changing the tires of the car while the car is still in motion. Nobody has the luxury of taking multiple days of downtime to change the IT systems of any organization. Nevertheless, every opportunity we get from a system standpoint, we try and strangle the monolith, break it down into a modular, composable architecture, so to speak. In terms of ways of working, I think the industry is moving to agile from a waterfall and faster releases, sprint cycles, sprint velocity. more value to customers faster. I think that is the paradigm moving forward. If I can volunteer one cool acronym that kind of brings it together for me, it's the MACH architecture, M-A-C-H, modular, API first, cloud native, and headless. Right, so I think that's where the industry is fast moving to. But again, like I said, it's an evolution versus a revolution.
Thank you. Audience, I'm not getting much questions from all of you. So would you like to start, getting into Slido to ask? I do have some, but I would like to encourage all of us to post your questions. I think we've got a fantastic panel of speakers here with loads of experience. So I encourage all of you to put in your questions. So let me maybe move on to the next one, right? I think we've all talked about balancing the agility versus the legacy systems that we have. I guess I want to get your thoughts. What's your strategy on, there's a lot of talk about building in-house capabilities, working with external parties, and external parties could be many sorts, right? All sorts of partners. It could have been competition, could be the government, could be business partners that you work with. What's your thoughts on that, and what's your strategy? Maybe.
Sure. I would start by saying our personal philosophy and strategy is that balance is brilliance. And to achieve the right balance, every organization has to decide what is core and what is it that gives them the competitive advantage, and try and retain talent and build in-house talent in that particular area where there is definitely a point of difference, be it providing a meaningful consumer experience, a competitive advantage. And then there are commoditized services, there are SaaS services, there are external service integrator partners who would probably render the same service at a much more economical and faster rate. And that's where we leverage scale and synergy from the outside in. I've seen strategies go wrong when we have veered too much to the extreme, be it complete in-house or completely outsourced workforce model, neither of which work for most corporations. And I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all either. So everybody has to find the right sweet spot on this continuum.
I think I'll agree with Kshitij on this, right? So during the pandemic, what we saw is there were many fault lines that got exposed in our resourcing strategy, because we were seeing the teams not able to connect and not working in the same locality anymore, co-located in the same offices anymore, and attrition was also a problem in the same place. So when we had to look at it, our strategy has been somewhere in the middle, right? We don't want to outsource everything, but we want to keep the talent where we are focusing deep on our business processes. Maybe like your process expertise, your UX expertise, customer engagement expertise, all those things has to be in-house, architecture for that matter. But scale is going to be coming with your partners. So you need to engage and work with them closely, because that's where we can go faster in terms of meeting the business demands. So we are kind of balancing that. Having two locations, having similar skill sets, so that there is a backup on how do we address the needs and so on. It's a journey, and we are in a good position, I would say, but still lots to go.
Yeah, from a regulatory perspective, I would like you to look at partnership in a strategic point of view. Number one, unless you're an IT organization, like say if you're like Sephora or GE Healthcare or even DHL, their core business is not IT. Their core business, in his case, selling beauty products. In his case, selling dyes for healthcare solutions. And her case, it's delivery. So the right answer is partner with an IT company so that they take care of your weak points. However, also remember from a regulatory perspective that the buck stops with you. So just because you are compliant, you have to ensure that your partner is compliant. Because if there's a breach of data, of PII, personally identifiable information, from your company because of your partner, PDPC will still go after you. And I have one warning to give you. From October, the PDPC regulations are getting more stringent. The penalty is going to be 10% of your Singapore revenues for breaches committed due to your fault or your partner's fault. So think about it very carefully. This is not as bad as GDPR. So let me give you one example of GDPR. In 2020, British Airways had a leakage of 400,000 customer records. GDPR and the EU fined them 183 million pounds for that. Fortunately, COVID came to the rescue and the British government appealed, so the fine was reduced to 20 million pounds. But this is the cost of a breach, the cost of not following regulations, the cost of not securing your customers' data, because we or you are custodians of your customers' data. And if that breach happens because of you, the law is going to come very heavily on you. And the amounts involved are atrociously high.
Karen?
Well, I'm not going to add on to what they said. I think basically in DHL, we are in this balance between building internally and outsourcing externally using strategic partners. And what Raju says is true. We are not a tech company. I think we are not an IT company. We are transportation. We need to leverage on partners that can deliver. But when we do that, we keep in mind, we design security, we design resilience, and we work with the partners, though the buck stops with DHL. If anything goes wrong, we hold it. So I think that's basically really, really important. And the PDPC, I mean, DHL is a German company, so we are held with the GDPR. And in Singapore, we need to comply to the PDPA. I think that's really, really important. And interestingly, we'll be talking about digitalization and digital wins, but you notice that most of us keep talking about data protection, we're talking about information security, because that is post-pandemic and a post-digitalization. While we move to the cloud, everything is there. But because everything is there, even though it can be as secure as you want, or we hope that we can be as secure, breaches happen. We were just talking about it prior, about the number of scams and phishing and everything that comes in. And it doesn't matter how solid we are, we just need one individual in the organization or a customer to make a mistake, and that's it. We are the malware, the ransomware, everything comes in. But that's why when it comes to deciding whether we build internally or we go external, that becomes called, what do we want to keep in-house within DHL? Architecture is a good example. We need to decide what our architecture standards should be. Then we work with the external partners to deliver. I mean, we work with primarily a number of key major vendors to deliver technology, but it is always a joint effort. So sometimes we build externally, but we have the internal resources to understand what's being done so that they can support. So it's never just a build, it's always the run. Okay, building is very easy. Everyone can build something, but who's going to support, maintain, ensure that all the patches and security requirements are all up to date? I think that's always been that balance, and I think looking at my fellow panelists, we all seem to have the same agreement across most of the CIOs that we have to have that balance. We can't go one or the other. We normally can't stay in the middle between internal and external.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the key things I'm hearing a lot is talent, right? Because you talk about building, and it's whether your partner's talent or your own talent. And we do have a question on how to, and I think this is probably the most asked questions in any panel I've been in, and I'm just not sure I've pressed already. Maybe the organizers, can we bring it up? It's on how to elevate, how do you deal with the talent shortage, talent gap that we have, and everybody knows from a tech space, that's the key area, key concerns of all organizations. I think there is a poll. Again, organizers I've pressed, but I'm not sure why it's not showing up. But talent gap, talent shortage. Maybe Karen, just to.
There is this debate within the regional and the country IT heads in Asia, whether or not Asia is actually experiencing what the US is experiencing, the Great Resignation. So there's always been this difference in opinion, but in Singapore primarily, I am actually personally seeing that there is a challenge getting IT personnel, entry level, mid-level. I mean, these are the biggest focus I have. So what are we doing in DHL? I mean, as a general focus, what we do is we ensure we keep our employees emotionally connected to us. Having rationally connected employees means the moment they get something better, they'll just leave, okay? And maybe it's for the good reason, for a better career. But in DHL, I mean, we have had loyal employees, not necessarily IT, that has stayed with us for 47 years. We've been here 50 years, okay? They've been with us 47 years. So these are the really emotionally engaged, and they're really happy, okay? In IT, I was just talking to my regional CIO. I says, my regional CIO has just accepted his 30 years long service award in DHL just a few months ago. And we are seeing that. So if you get emotionally engaged employees, great. But now we need to get them into the door first, right? That's our biggest challenge. I've been trying to hire, okay, just project managers, business analysts for the last 3 months. Either I'm not getting the right CVs or DHL is not attractive enough to the Googles and the Amazons, but that's a challenge. I was in a seminar previously for Google, one of the Google person, and he's saying that Google themselves are having challenges hiring. I mean, if Google is having challenge, I say, oh my God, what about DHL? I mean, we are not as the high tier in terms of technology, right? But that is a challenge. So what we try to do is we need to reposition the job, okay, to not be fully IT. It has to have the business components. We need to create hybrids. Okay, ultimately, the goal that I want is I need to create hybrids within IT. People that understands the business so that they can help to deliver the IT solutions that's required. My tagline to my team is, guys, I need you guys to move out to being an IT person, an instruction taker, to become a VP, to be a valued partner. That's how we can keep the talent, okay, in the organization. Bringing the talent in is a little bit of a HR roadshow that I need to work with. I'm trying to bring in the right talent, but once we get the talent in, we work really hard to keep them within DHL. It doesn't have to be in my department. Remember, DHL works in 220 countries with 5 business units. They can go anywhere, but we just need to bring the talent in itself.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Shitesh?
Sure. Attrition or retention is an outcome, and as such, we can't directly control the outcome. My strategy is really control the controllables, or what we can focus on, which is the input measures. And I completely agree with Karen. It's all about providing meaningful work. At the end of the day, organization and people come into work every day to learn and grow as much as they come in for pay and benefits, right? Mm-hmm. So I think so long as we are providing meaningful work, it's a combination of, to me, 4 Rs. The right roles staffed with the right people, working on the right things in the right way, right? So, and those are the controllables. As we design for organizations and talent management practices around these 4 Rs, then I think we will have a better success rate in terms of providing that meaningful work, and then in turn, associates and employees will reward us, if anything, with loyalty and retention, which is an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I think just to add to Karen and Shijit, right? So for me, it's about empowering the team, right? As leaders, what we see is it's completely uncertain in what we are dealing with. We are bringing someone from the market, maybe he has a project management or business analyst or technology expertise, but for a company like us, understanding business is even more important. Talking in their language is more important. How do we enable them to fail fast and learn in that process, engaging with business and able to translate their needs and build that partnership? So most of my roles in my team are business partner roles. I don't have project managers or business analysts anymore. So in that sense, it's about driving that ownership culture and giving them space to fail, right? And it should not be penalized. It should be rewarded in many ways in that process. So that's where I see we can give more growth to the individuals there.
Yeah, I'd like to give you a perspective, and this comes from a Harvard case study called API. A is for appreciate your key talent and make sure they don't leave, like Karen said, or my other co-panelists also said. Make sure your star talent, who is key for running the company, stays with you. P is for partner. Because all the things that are your weaknesses for which you want to hire, partner with companies. And companies can be outsourced. And the I stands for interaction. Interaction is basically on the cloud. There are companies which are cloud native, which do business on the cloud. So you can do your business on the cloud. During the COVID times, for instance, you had companies talking to employees all over the world with nobody coming to office, and still businesses ran, which means there is some merit in doing the interaction on Zoom, on cloud, on Teams, on Google Meet to ensure that the talent stays where it is. You don't have to bring all the talent to Singapore. You don't have to hire all of them to Singapore. Your P&L will go off the roof. You might as well keep the talent where it is, manage the talent with the partnership. And who manages the talent? Your stars, who are the appreciable part of your business. So that's how the API comes together. Because talent shortage is not just bothering us, it also bothers the Googles of the world, it bothers governments, it bothers multinationals all over the world.
Yeah.
And this is the only way for us to keep it sustainable. Thanks.
Thank you. I think to add my perspective, and I think in the poll, flexible working hours seems to be coming top from the poll, but also training and reskilling. And I clearly hear that across, right? Not just technical skills, but across the hybrid, the cross training into business for IT professionals and all. I think I'm definitely also agreeing that the governments have put in a lot of programs that you can work with across industry with the governments. They're providing a lot of support in that area for all of us. Now, before I ask the final question, I also want to mention one of the new things, while we're hearing about great resignation, the other key thing that's coming up a lot is actually silent quitting. So great, we are keeping the talent, but how do we ensure, and we probably see a lot of that, we talked a lot about safety of the people, making sure that they're safe, they are not burnout, mental wellness and all. I think silent quitting is something you should watch out for. They may be still with you, but they've checked out. So I think that's really another thing to really look at in terms of your talent as well. So final, last fire round question, give me one word that you would describe the future CIO going into 2023 that's absolutely critical. Maybe.
Courageous.
Empower the team.
Sorry? Yeah.
Empower the team.
Empowerment.
Be prepared for the worst.
Be a people manager.
Thank you very much. With that, thank you everyone. This concludes our panel. Thank you.